Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's device management interface call. Thanks for joining. As usual, the call is public and is recorded, so please be mindful of whatever you share with the team and with the group at large. Having said that, the first item I want to take is a Jira story that was given to us because we are taking care of the OLT software upgrade. What I do believe is that this is, at least from an interface perspective, done. Obviously, it needs to be implemented within the different OLTs and the different device managers and the different software pieces. But from an interface perspective, this can be considered done. And also Amit and the folks at Radisys have an working proof of concept for the EdgeCore OLT with the scripts that do the upgrade. So can we call this done? Amit, what do you think? At least this particular story. We can open new ones whenever it's needed, but.
So should we wait for the code submission to happen and then close it?
Yes, that's a good point. Fair enough. Let me do this. I'm going to just assign it to you. The thing is that it's still not going to be plumbed through the device manager. So that's a whole another story. But at least the OLT capability, the upgrade capability is there. Let's do this. Yes.
Andrea?
Yes.
Just a question. What kind of components will be treated by this story related to the embedded? I mean, will you upgrade also the ONL or just the OLT agent? What kind of components will be treated by this?
No. This is a complete update of the system. Bear in mind that, especially in the case of Deutsche Telekom, what they are doing is that they're having one image that packages everything together.
Right.
Meaning ONL, OpenOLT agent, dev management daemon, and whatever else sits in the box. So what they have is this unique image, and the whole thing is updated. Within that image, it can be that you just changed, for example, the OpenOLT agent, or that you just changed ONL, or that you just changed the dev management daemon.
Okay.
But the image is treated as a whole to be installed on the box.
Right, and it will be installed using ONI?
Yes, there was a presentation, I think, what was it, 2 or 3 weeks ago from Amit. The call should be recorded on YouTube. But yes, the idea is to have a standby partition and an active partition and be capable of making the swap between those two.
Okay, I will take a look on the YouTube for this presentation.
Yes.
Thank you.
If you don't find it, just send me an email, okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem. You can also go back in this document to see where this was done.
Actually, this API should be called the ONL updater. It's not the full OLT updater. I don't know.
What do you mean, Pascal?
Like you can, there's several software components that can be updated.
Yes.
What VT is using is just the ONL side of the business. You can update the firmware, the CPLD, BIOS.
Yes, yes, indeed, indeed. Let me make a modification here. Make sense?
Yes. We do have something called multi-updater. We've implemented for AT&T. We are going to be using for updating the Edge core boxes. It's a single package that updates everything, including the CPLD, FPGA, BIOS, firmware, and ONL. I'll send the spec to DT first. And if DT is interested, I'll forward it as well, but it's not going to be included in this. I don't think so.
Sounds good. Thanks. That would be great if you could forward it to whatever. If DT is interested, please do. If not, let's just go with this one. Okay, great. Perfect. So next up is something that I wanted to talk about, and it came up in a few discussions around the interface that we were building. And that is that at the moment, the code does not provide an API for creating, getting a list of managed devices. So if you go into here, no, not here, sorry. Forgot where it is. Yes, so there is a start managing device and stop managing device, but there is no like list of managed devices, which just returns an IP and the port, a bare minimum set of elements that are managed by this device management adapter. Is that something that is would be worth adding? What you guys think?
It's operators if they need. At the beginning, somebody's given the device manager this list. It's either or whatever else is using. If the operators think that they may want to read it back, yeah, why not?
Yeah, Andreas, Amit here. So I also sound the same opinion, right? So I don't have a problem in having such an interface, but given that it is the user of this interface who creates these devices.
Yes.
Right. So the user should know. So there's no harm in having that API, but I don't really understand the use case, why this API is an absolute must.
I wouldn't say it's a must. It's I would say more of a convenience, because you can check that you're actually managing the devices you're expecting. It's just more of a convenience than an absolute must. It's just okay, these are the devices I'm controlling. No more than that. Should be fairly simple. And maybe somebody that is not the NEM that sent the list might want to get this information for sanity checks or other things of the system. So I think it's worth having.
We can have it. That's not a problem, I think.
Okay. I can probably add it, or would you prefer doing it, Amit?
It's up to you. I'm fine otherwise.
I'll take it on myself and do it. Should be a fairly easy batch. Okay. Okay, perfect. Any other comments on this? No? Okay. Then I would like to give the floor to Amit to give a little bit of an update on the possibility of implementing the device management interface on top of BBSIM, as we have discussed some time ago. That was left as a follow-up. I follow up with Theo, who created most of the code of BBSIM, and he was very open to the possibility, and he said that it's doable and it is actually something that it's worth having, and it shouldn't be too difficult because you just add a simple gRPC service and open up a new port on the BBSIM container, and that is the device manager. Obviously, you would have a one-to-one mapping, given the fact that BBSIM simulates one OLT, and having this DM on top of the same image and the same container of the OLT would have a one-to-one mapping between one device manager and one OLT. This is the downside of implementing it on top of BBSIM, but I do believe that being BBSIM for testing, it is very much well worth having it on top of this, having the device management interface on top of it, so it can allow us easier testing with it already deployed in the Volta stack. Amit, do you want to give us some thoughts on this one?
Thanks, Andre. So I think you have summarized it pretty well already. So the requirement comes from the fact that now with the device managers coming in, the workflows are getting more and more integrated to use the device manager on the management plane side, as well as Volta on the control plane side, right? So if we don't have a device manager, when we use BBSIM for the control plane part of it, then it becomes difficult or tricky as to how we test complete workflows when we use BBSIM. And that brings us to the requirement that when we use BBSIM, we need to have the same interface being implemented that would be implemented with real OLTs as well. So with the real OLTs, the model that we were thinking of was, it's just implementation choice, right? So it could be either one instance of the device manager managing multiple physical devices, or it could be n instances of the device manager, each managing one or more, right? So it could be 1:n, whatever, n:2m, or 1:1. But the simplest of those approaches, I think, is 1:n. But so we were contemplating of either an option of creating a completely dummy device manager, let's say, which would run in case of BBSIM, and this may not really talk to BBSIM as well, right? Just to get over this requirement of satisfying the interface. But as we go ahead and have more and more functionality being added, right? So then I think we would come to a point where the data being reported from the device management interface and the data being reported or seen through Volta should match, right? So a typical example would be the number of ports or transceivers, right? So to have both the data being reported to be consistent, it would be good that instead of having a completely dummy implementation of the device manager in case of BBSIM, it's good that it really talks to the BBSIM and figures out that, okay, BBSIM is going to report this on the control plane, and this is what it should be on the management plane. So on that, again, coming back to that, we had two options. One is, as Andrew already said, have a 1:1 mapping. So put this device management interface on the BBSIM itself. The other option that we were thinking of was to have one instance of the device manager, which talks to n instances of BBSIM. But the only downside of that is it involves more work, right? Because in any case, we have to have an interface on BBSIM, either use the same interface and the single instance just keeps on doing a proxying kind of a job, or come up with another interface. So to keep things simple, and given that this is just to test simulations, we thought that we could implement the interface directly on BBSIM. So that's what the proposal is right now, and we are thinking of getting into implementation of this shortly. So any thoughts, comments, concerns?
Yes, Nathaniel.
I guess
No, I think it's great to have it. And the downside of the one-to-one mapping, as I said, is not major, because there will be maybe occasions where we have this device management component that just manages one OLT. So I think it's totally fine having it in that way. Yeah, I'm all for the implementation whenever that can be done. And this would allow us also at ONF to have some tests that validate the interface on top of BBSIM, and then we can do it on top of the hardware whenever that comes both from EdgeCore and from Adtran, whenever the device management adapter from EdgeCore and the one from Adtran do come with the gRPC interface that we have here. Having it on BBSIM would have already allowed us to write the tests for it, so that would be good. It's very valuable. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Then Amit, just keep us updated on the progress. Whenever you have any news about this, I'll be very much happy to hear them. So, thanks.
yeah, I'll create a Jira for this.
Yeah.
Track it through that.
Perfect.
Can I just assign an action on me? That would help. That would help me remember.
Yes. Yes. Okay, done. So, okay, any questions on this topic before we move forward? Okay, then if not, let me bring forward another topic that was discussed some time ago. This is regarding the logging for the OLT box, and the question from the brigade was, okay, what is the operator's request around what they want for logging and what they want for log levels and components? So I went back and asked both Turk Telekom and the Deutsche Telekom about their desire for logging on the OLT, and what API should the device management have for configuring such logging. And the request was a very high level abstracted API. There were three options. It's all outlined in this document. So there were three options. The three options were from the most abstracted one, which is the one that we're going to go and talk about later, to the least abstracted one, where you have string-based information being passed down from them to the different devices, identifying different log levels and different components. So the operators came back asking for a very simple API that described the log levels independently of the vendor and the different components within the box. So the idea would have to be a set log for a certain log level for a certain component. And where these components can be the operating system, can be the like pawn management system. So very high level components that are independent of whatever vendor is creating the box and creating the adapter. This was the requirement from both Turk Telecom and DT, Deutsche Telekom. I agreed on this, so this is what I would have chosen as a proposal, because the whole point is to abstract the device details from NEM. It does have some downsides, meaning that it cannot maybe show all the intricacies of a specific vendor device, and it might abstract from some capabilities that the device has to show different types of log and different type of levels and for different type of components. But it would simplify NEM greatly, and it would also allow, if needed, to go directly to the box. But I would like to hear the thoughts of the people on the call in relation to this, because in the end it all falls on the vendors to implement an adapter that takes whatever logging system they have for whatever levels, for whatever components, and abstracts it and maps it to this abstracted log levels, info, warn, error, debug, the usual, and these abstracted knowledge of components, operating system, pawn management, and things like that. So this is the overview. I'd like to open up and see what people think about this.
You're assuming that the whatever the controller on the target side is aware of the available components. It creates a coupling between the controller and the OLT itself, or whatever is running on the OLT. It may be a little bit, I don't know how to maintain it. The controller's up-to-date status and its awareness of what's running on the box, it has to be kept in in sync all the time. For example, if DT or TT decides to update, put another component, it has to let that component know to the controller running on that box. I don't know how it's going to be done. I mean, it is for standard components. I'm assuming it's pretty much straightforward. But what happens there if there's a system update that OLT gets updated, ONL gets updated, and there's a new container in there? Unless you let the controller know that there is a component like that, it's not going to work. The second thing is you need a flag that enables and disables the log, I think.
Okay.
Like set log enable enum level enum component, for example, or disable enum level enum component.
Or as a level itself, saying it's no log, for example, just as Broadcom does it.
Makes sense. Yes. Any other thoughts? I'll get to the questions that you asked, Astin. I just want to maybe catch a few of them. Okay. I think this will have to be brought up again when Adrian is on the call too, maybe Holger next week. But so my thoughts regarding on how to deal with added components, that's a very good point. I think it depends on what the component is. So for example, if you add another element within the pawn management side of things, that falls under the pawn management object that I was talking about. If you add another piece within ONL, I don't know, the logs of the ONLP platform API, things like that, those fall under the operating system. For an entirely new component that sits on the box, the option is to add it to the interface itself and have a new release of the interface and have a new set of protos and things like that. So that is what I would do, but it is a question if this is the right thing to do. I don't know. Thoughts from anybody?
Or maybe we'll just say, we'll just enable the logs for everything. Everything goes to the syslogs or something. I know it's not really convenient, but otherwise you have to go ahead and incorporate all that knowledge about what's running on the bugs into that controller. I don't know how feasible that is. And also, how are you going to make sure that the devices are going to respond to the same components? I mean, conceptually, it is possible to have different components running on the OLTs.
Yep.
And two vendors can coexist on the same deployment. So how do you?
Well, the idea is that the device management adapter for each vendor would do the mapping between the log levels of the API and the log levels of the vendor itself. So
Yeah, but it's
that's
still
how you make it coexist.
What I mean is, it's still throwing the ball to the vendor side, but it still is an unanswered question, I think.
Why so?
I mean, how do you know the components are going to be running, similar components are going to be running, or exactly the same components running on the...
Well, that is defining the list of components. It's something that is very important, but I would think that an operating system is independent of whatever vendor. You expect the device to have an operating system. It's going to be ONL, in the case of EdgeCore. It's going to be whatever the operating system Adtran is running in the case of Adtran. Can be whatever small, tiny operating system in the case of a pluggable OLT for chips work. So,
perfect example. The EdgeCore is based on the OpenOLT. Adtran isn't.
yes.
So we cannot even assume that there's going to be an OLT adapter of the same functional.
No, you cannot assume it, but I would expect Adtran to have some sort of PON management. I would say that the OpenOLT is to be considered a PON management system, because really that is what it does. It manages the control side of things, manages the traffic and enable disable of the PON ports and the ONUs and things like that. So I would expect Adtran to have the same thing.
Well, why don't? It's a good idea then to specify what the components each or how the API should respond, regardless of what the device the operator is using. Should we define what the components that we have to support?
I see. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, and some of the things is if you're able to query through the device manager what the components are, and maybe part of that, I mean, that's a simple operation, and then have each component report what features they support, whether they support logging or not.
Yeah,
It's a better idea.
Because I mean, if you, I'm very familiar. I used to work at Adtran, but I'm not gonna. So that they have a very rich
feature-rich capability. So I think they could probably handle most anything. So probably thinking at the absolute simplistic is requesting from the device manager what components are present and what are their features. Obviously, one feature is logging, or what is it? Is it software? Is it a hardware such as a fan or a driver? So maybe if we thought a little bit more abstract, just in just large terms, because every vendor is going to be significantly different, but the steps of look at it, pick this out, then do this operation, those steps are sort of generic. And in a deployment, if there's one or two, as long as the workflow is the same, the actual physical commands you send in the syntax is not really that important, because you should have that worked out before it goes into the field. Does that make any sense? Or
I do agree with you, and I think it answers my concern.
Yeah.
It's the devices, what the components that they can turn logs on and off, and let the operator decide depending on the device. I want to turn this. Yeah, I mean it makes more sense.
Yeah, because I mean, if you actually look like the Tibit device OLT, it is very simplistic. It could sit in a dedicated switch that provides the fabric, or it could actually occupy spare slots in a top of rack. And obviously you don't want to write, and you don't want to get into the let's write a device manager for the top of rack or fabric switches. That's for someone else to handle. So I would envision you talk to the Tibit device manager and say, what do you support? And we list, okay, here we have some ports. We have no fans. We can report power and CPU levels. So.
Yeah, but those are the components that we already have in the interface. Those are physical components. Here we're mainly talking about software components.
Yeah, well, I'm just doing one more step further. One is software components. We have firmware, and its features are it can be downloaded. You can get logs from it. And then a larger OLT just has more instances of software or firmware present.
No, this is a good idea.
So the API would look like a two-step API, like query loggable components or something like that. And it would have a list of loggable components.
Yeah, and I would get with Adtrans and see how much they want to expose about their capabilities. I think they should have some very good ideas in this, and keeping it at this simple approach might be preferable to them. And perhaps there might even be some Yang models present that provide this kind of simple view.
Okay, that's a good point. I think it's doable, especially if we define the loggable component as an object in our proto model, and so you don't go too far.
Yeah.
It's not a string.
Yeah, and if we just tackle these simple things, such as logging. That's very simple, because the abstract version could be, like when you want to set the level, you would set it to warning, and the applicable device manager would set it to WARN or warning or 7, and I think that gets us some abstraction without getting too much complexity.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. I think this is a workable one. I'll bring it up again the next week, with Adtran and see if they are okay with this. It would require a little bit more complication with the NEM component, but it should be fairly abstract for the NEM to handle. What does everybody else think?
To be honest with you, I don't think that NEM really makes. Spending time with the NEM integration is a little bit futile effort. Neither Turk Telecom or ET are not. They are not using NEM for their dashboard, and dashboard is going to be controlling this.
Yeah. When I say NEM, it's really whatever the operator puts on top of this interface.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not just the ONF NEM. It can be whatever. When I say NEM, it's really I know it can be the OSS BSS, it could be the dashboard, it could be another service that sits on top of calls this gRPC and then shuffles around again the results. I don't care. Whatever it is on top of this one. Okay, that makes sense. Perfect. Any other comments or thoughts?
Andre, Amit here. So today, during the day, I had a chat with Manuel.
Yes.
Unfortunately, he was not able to join the call today because of some overlap meeting. So what he was saying was that, so if you look into this logging thing through the device management interface, right? So there are basically two aspects to it. One is what we spoke about already, right? How do you control the logs, right? The levels and the components from which it is getting generated and things like that. And the other is what is the treatment to the logs, right? So basically, how does this logs go out of the box and how does it get integrated into the operator's network? So what Manuel is saying is that the logs going out of the box and getting integrated, that is a higher priority for the MVP. Right? And that is something that it would be good if we implement it first in the device management interface, and then we try and do the consensus on the log levels and things like that. Because he agrees that yes, it might take some effort to get into a good solution, especially when we are talking about abstraction, right? So yeah, so that is some of the comments that he had.
So I would tend to agree. It's important to get them out, and we saw the demo from the Infosys guys, Girish and Divya. So I think that having a set endpoint for the log level to where that goes, and that is most likely an IP import. I think that makes a lot of sense. Is that what you were thinking, Amit?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, IP port.
It can be
maybe the protocol as well.
Or it can also be a DNS name.
Yeah.
Where the IP is the host name more than just an IP. Let's call it like that.
Okay.
That makes sense. I think this is a fairly
the
straightforward.
protocol might not be needed, right?
Maybe not.
Because the device manager anyways would know what is the protocol that its device supports. So maybe we don't have to specify the protocol through which the protocol or mechanism through which the logs need to be exported
No,
out.
the device manager should not know what the device supports. As a matter of fact, it cannot. If you're assuming we're just going to use the OLT, yes. But on the broader scheme of things, it could be a storage device. How do you know what that storage device supports as far as the protocols it can use?
No, to me, we can add it. It's no problem.
That should be a protocol.
Okay.
And if that device is not going to use the protocol, so be it.
Okay. Amit, would you mind adding this? This is a pretty straightforward. I don't think we need that much discussion on it.
Yeah. So yeah. So when I think about adding it, so this would come into the start managing device API itself, right?
Would we think? Could we think about having this separate as a separate API? Because I think that the endpoint might change. No.
Okay.
So
So
would,
you're
ideally,
saying that
yes. Ideally, yes, it would be called immediately after the start managing device. But maybe at a certain point, you want to change the location of the endpoint for the logs. So I think it's a valuable thing to have it as a separate API that can be called whenever somebody wants.
okay. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Perfect. And then we can go forward with the discussion on this. I think we can go bring it up next week again when Antron is on the call and make sure that we have an agreement, a fairly good agreement on that. Okay. Perfect. Any other questions or comments on this topic? No? Okay. Then I think we have the last two topics. The one is actually let me swap them because if we don't get time for the second one, I care more about the status of the Edge Core Device Manager than the authentication and attack access. Is just a discussion that the TST is having. So Tuskin, what's the state of your implementation?
We are covering TT with their needs. We gave them a drop last week, but as far as the DT is concerned, they are still discussing with some BizDev people from our side on what support we're going to provide them. So I leave it to, what's his name, Manuel, to give an update.
I don't think we have Manuel on the call, so.
No, it really is out of my hands. I mean, they need to discuss the BizDev side. TT has done that discussion, so I know they are covered. DT needs to, and I know he has initiated, Manuel has initiated the conversation. They need to come to an agreement.
Okay. So what's the effort that you're taking on with Turk Telecom?
I would really prefer DT has conclude that discussion so that we can get into details. I mean, it's going to sound like we are preferring TT at this point. I'll wait for Manuel to give an update first.
Yeah, no. Okay. Then whenever Manuel can share information, you can share information both about Deutsche Telekom and Turk Telecom.
Turk Telecom is covered right now. Deutsche Telekom is talking to the BizDev people.
Okay. When you say that Turk Telecom is covered, what does that mean?
That's why I was saying it's going to sound like we prefer. Let's Manuel give an update.
Okay, sounds good. Let's wait for Manuel and then we can take this on. But did you start the upload of the Redfish code under the OCP license?
Yes, actually, yes.
Okay. Would you mind sending us the link of that?
I will send you a few updated documentation, probably by the end of next week. That will also include the multi-updater that we talked about. It's a little bit more than what, it's substantially more than what the DT is talking about, doing the OS updates, multiple partitions. I'll send the design doc on that as well. We've already presented to OCP guys We originally thought this is going to be telco related update only, but the idea came back from the OCP side that this should be more generalized so that it's applicable for the entire hardware spectrum. So we are trying to down manage the expectation from OCP side, but the progress is happening.
Okay, that's great. It's great to hear. Good. Okay, yeah, I would love to see anything that you guys have, anything that can be shared. Please do share it whenever you have the capability and the possibility.
Absolutely.
Available for sharing. Perfect. Okay. Any questions before I move forward? Okay, then if not, there are a couple of things on the authentication and the TACAX stuff that needs to be discussed. So just to give everybody an update, I think there are two sets of things here. The first one is the authentication and security of the gRPC channel. And the second one is accounts for the management of the system or the LTs and stuff like that. So in relation to the gRPC update, the TST is discussing having how exactly to integrate certificates to secure the end-to-end gRPC channel with SSL TLS. That is going to be done first at the OpenOLT adapter to OpenOLT agent level. And it's most likely going to be done through a project called Cert-Manager, which is an official Kubernetes project to manage certificates. And I think that the device manager can leverage that. So we can suggest for you to secure your gRPC connection is you could just use the SSL TLS certificate that both endpoints get from the Kubernetes secret pod. Both pods get from the Kubernetes secret. So that is the gRPC channel. In relations to the accounts, I think that the Infosys guys are showing the integration of TACAX, TACAX server with the OLT, OpenOLT agent again. And I think we can follow the same approach there for the accounts that we need to have within the OLTs and the device manager. Does that make sense to everybody?
Not necessarily.
Sorry.
You talked about securing the connection between the device manager and the whatever the dashboard is, but what about the connection between the device manager and the devices?
So that would be up to the device manager itself. It wouldn't be part of the interface per se. So you could do it based on your Redfish API. You could do it based on whatever other netconf API there might be there. It's up to the device manager. It's not up to the interface to that level.
There's still a certificate issue of certificate being distributed to the devices when they are being first brought up the installation of the software. Somebody is going to put a certificate in the device. Are we covering those, or we are going to assume that it is going to be done however it's going to be done per vendor?
Yes, the second one.
Okay, it goes with the same way with the devices. You're assuming that the Infosys approach is, let's go ahead and assume that all the devices are OLT and we are going to go ahead and do TechX support. What about the devices that are not under OLT umbrella?
So that is why I would like to take that approach, but see if it's applicable here. I'm not like selling it. I am just saying that's what they did for the OpenOLT, and it is possible that it can be done for other devices too. And we can take the OpenOLT approach. They did it in the OpenOLT agent. We should probably do it in the device manager component.
I would like to go ahead and continue with the previous approach where as we discussed before, the device manager doesn't get involved in this discussion at all. It just passes through the account information back to the device and let the device handle it. If the, for example, OLT is going to be doing the TechX with the Altran devices, I mean, it becomes up to the whoever the OLT vendor is. But still, the device manager is just a pass-through. That way, you can use any integration on your devices as you would like.
That's fine by me.
Right? And that will work with the Altran's approach as well, or Infosys approach as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you would just pass a token.
Exactly. We don't even. Otherwise, it's going to be too complicated for supporting everything else.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Andrea, as
Yes.
far as I remember, the TechX approach of Infosys doesn't specify the TSP in the meeting. So are we talking the same thing?
No, well, so when I say the Infosys approach of TACX is just putting in a TACX server in the deployment and then having different components deal with it. Obviously, in the case of Volta, and that is where the TST comes in, they propose to it on the OpenOLT agent, which to me doesn't make really sense. It has to be at the Vault CTL, a higher level of the API, really the Volta core for the accounts. It doesn't have to be at the lower level OpenOLT agent because it doesn't really make much sense. In that case, you have the ONL account management. So it's just using TACX, but I do like the idea of Taskin and just go with just a pass-through with a token, and we don't deal with accounts at all in the device manager.
Okay, yeah, that's also fine with me.
And I think what we can do is that there is an API, we pass in a token, and if the device manager says that that token cannot really do that operation for that specific device, because it goes to the device and the device doesn't know about this account based on this token, it just fails the API. Fair enough.
Sorry, Andrea, I did not really get this point.
Oh, so at some level, let's say Nemba makes a call to the device manager to, I don't know, update the device. Okay.
Okay.
The device manager has to have a certain level for that call. It cannot be done by somebody just breezing through the logs and clicking update device with not enough credentials. So the token gets passed in, and if that token is representative of an account that does not have upgrade capability, we just say no to the API. Does that make sense?
No, but that is not what we are doing with Volta, right?
Yeah, you have to do it that way. You have to do it that way. You have to go ahead and you're not going to allow anybody to come into and tell the device manager, I am rebooting the machine.
No, that's fine. I agree to that. What I'm asking is that why are we choosing different options or different solutions, one for Volta and one for device manager?
Well, the thing is that on the Volta side, we don't really have ever talked about this in the Volta side.
The device is going to be managed. The device is accessed from outside, and there has to be an authentication mechanism to say who you are and if you are going to be allowed to do that operation. I don't think that the Volta should manage the accounts for devices, or device manager should manage the accounts for devices. It should be somebody is going to say, I'm going to log into this device, which is again a pass-through to the device, and say, if you're logged in, if you're, have you been able to create a session that accesses the device? If you guys are using TechX on the device side to authenticate the user, great, it'll work. You'll have a session. The session token is going to be saved by whoever the caller is, and then again used for updating your system files. Device manager should not know if that account is allowed to access or update the device in this fashion. It should just pass that information back down to the device with the token information and say, hey, this caller says, update the device, here's his authentication token. Again, it's up to you guys to, on the device side, to do the operation. If the session token is fine, you do it.
Yeah, so Taskin, I'm not questioning the requirement. So if the requirement is there, yes, we can implement it. What I'm questioning is that why do we do it differently on the control plane and differently on the management plane?
The interesting thing is, Amit, I think that what threw you off was the presentation from Infosys at last TST. That was doing it at that level on the OLT, that as they were proposing to do it, TST said no. You should do this, but to manage Volta, you should do it at the VoltCTL gRPC northbound API level.
So if you take that argument, then the same thing should hold here as well, right? Then
which is precisely what we're
the
doing.
Device management interface at the DMI interface level, and not at the interface between the OLT and the device manager.
Well, that's what we're doing. We're not even putting it at the device manager. We're just passing through.
Exactly. I mean, device manager is not involved on that at all. All we are saying is actually device manager should not be involved at all.
Yeah, and the difference, I think that the key difference is that with Volta, you do operations that might be unrelated to a box. Think about provision a subscriber. That is not like a box related object. That is not like reboot the device or give you alarms, things like that.
No, but you can enable, disable the ports. You can cause complete service disruption even through Volta.
Yes. So I don't think that it's an issue doing it at the VoltCTL level. Why do you think it is like that? Or you think that we should pass through a token even on the Volta side?
No. No, what I'm asking is, if we can do it at the VoltCTL level, right, in Volta, and not do it on a per command basis between the Volta adapter and the device, the same thing if we try to draw parallel in this case, then we would have to do it on the device management interface level and not validate on a per command basis authorization between the device manager and the OLT. Same thing, right?
We should. We are saying it has to be authenticated. It has to be validated, the fact that whoever the caller is allowed to literally change the OS partition. This is a very secure way of doing it. Then you can even make the argument of, okay,
so authentication definitely needs to be done. I think the question is about authorization. What was proposed by the TST in case of Volta was that the authorization need not be down at the device, but it can be done at the Voltcuttle level itself. So whenever you issue a command at Voltcuttle, you see if the user is authorized to do that command or not.
Yeah, there's an authentication. There's an account management in the OLT level, and that's okay. And we are saying we are going to do the same thing, the account management on the device level. And given the fact that the devices can there could be a number of devices, not just OLT. There could be storage devices, there could be servers or NUs. Instead of trying to manage the accounts for all those devices at the OLT level or the SIBA level, let's go ahead and do those on the device itself. And that's what you're doing with the OLT as well. You do the authentication through in the device itself. All we are saying is let's go ahead and keep it doing it that way.
Sorry, but maybe I'm not able to understand the idea here.
You are going to be talking to a device that may or may not be OLT.
Yeah.
Right now you're handling OLT. How are you going to tell that device, I am really authorized to do this? Or how does that device know somebody's asking me to go and reboot the machine? Right now, on the SIBA side, I do agree with the control plane. The account management is done on the SIBA side. There is an account, you know that the user is authenticated to do whatever they are going to do it. And there's goes and change the what they call the port status, etc. But whenever somebody is doing it, you know who that user is because they are authenticated. In this, when you're directly talking to the device, which is outside the SIBA environment, literally is outside the SIBA environment for the control plane of the device is concerned, you need to go ahead and do something similar. And that device has the account management in it. Not you, the device has the account management. So how are you going to authenticate to the user or to the device that you are authorized to do whatever you're asking the device to do?
Okay.
Okay, let's maybe take this offline. Let's give it some more thought. Let's see what the DST discussion progresses. I think this is not like the most urgent requirement at all. It's a good discussion to have, but let's see also what the DST proposes on the Volta side, and when that is implemented, we can take a look and decide for ourselves also here. Okay, given the fact that we are 5 minutes over the hour, thanks everybody for joining. I'll publish the recording. And we have our action items on this. I'll make sure to bring up again the logging side next week for Adrian to comment. Please do be present next week because Adrian is going to give us a demo of their device manager with the gRPC interface from Holger. So we can see our interface actually in action for the first time. That's pretty good. Thanks, everybody. Cheers. Bye-bye.
All right.
So,
enjoy your weekend.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
So, Andre, do you have the meeting next week or?
Yeah, we have it next.
That it will be bi-weekly, right?
Yes, I know, but sorry, not next week. 2 weeks from now, the 1st of October. 1st of October. Sorry, my bad.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
All right.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.